Welcome to the Richard Sherman podcast, brought to you by SuperDraft Fantasy. Daily fantasy is broken, and SuperDraft has fixed it. Listeners can discover why with their first $5 SuperDraft contest for free with the promo code PFF at registration. No credit card required. Download the SuperDraft app and play today.
Well, I'm the best corner in the game. Don't you ever talk about me. Picked off. It is Richard Sherman. It's picked off by Sherman. Now, buckle up. Here he goes. And it is intercepted by Richard Sherman. Broken up. Picked off. This game is over.
All right, welcome to the Richard Sherman podcast with my guy, Mitch Eisenstein. Another day, another dollar. Exciting things happen. Cam is back in Carolina. You know, it's a better league with Cam Newton in it, at least in my opinion. Mac Jones is living up to the hype. How you feeling, Mitchell?
Richard, Mac Jones has made me a believer. I think he should have been the top pick in the draft. That's how I think. I don't know, man. I mean, I don't know if it's Belichick or if Mac Jones is truly a stud. I mean, what are your thoughts? I mean, Trevor Lawrence looks inferior to Mac Jones. Can we agree on that?
No, we can definitely agree on that. I mean, that the coaching and system have a lot to do with success in this football league, and that's why everybody is always like, hey, this guy's a bust, this guy's good, this guy's that. And it's like, hey, if you don't go to the right team, if you don't go to the right situation and the right fit where you're getting constant coaching and you're getting people who believe in you, it doesn't always work out. You know, you don't always want to go to the number one team, you know, because a lot of times that's a bad team. And Urban Meyer's a first-year, professional coach, and he's going through the growing pains. You know, they've gotten a win or two, but you can tell, this is his first rodeo, and so it's tough to go through that as a rookie quarterback because Mac Jones has Belichick. Belichick is going to put his guys in the best position possible. He's going to make the game as simple and as easy as possible as he can on them. His defense is going to be very stout consistently, and that's what you're seeing.
You guys talked about it last week, you and Leonard Fournette, and obviously he went to Jacksonville right out of college, and there was a lot of pressure on him. And now we're seeing it again with Trevor Lawrence. I know we've had conversations about the fit that Seattle was. Obviously, you going in the fifth round, you carried a chip on your shoulder, but looking back at it now, having a veteran presence like Trufant that you had in front of you there, kind of guiding the way for you, like how much does coaching staff and veteran leadership help rookies enter into this league?
It's invaluable. And that's the thing that people don't understand. If you don't have leadership, if you don't have coaching, then you kind of left to your own devices. And a lot of guys aren't prepared for that. A lot of guys don't know how to be pros. That's why you have veterans to show you, hey, what to do, how to prepare, how to take care of your body. Where should I eat? Who should I talk to? What should I do with my money? All the questions, even on a day-to-day, how do I practice? You know what I mean? What do I do on game day? What's my routine? Do I need a routine? And for a guy to not have a veteran in front of him to really kind of walk him through those steps, coaches can only take you so far, and then you need players, guys that are on the field constantly. Guys have done it, and they don't have that. It's tough, and that's what Trevor Lawrence is going through.
How does a team that doesn't have that get that? You understand my question? How does a team without veteran leadership, without a coach that has had success in the NFL, how do they overcome those deficits and eventually get that to become a franchise like the Seattle Seahawks and 49ers and Tampa Bay Buccaneers of the world?
You got to pay for it. And that's the unfortunate part of this league is everybody wants to go cheap. Everybody wants to go younger. Well, going younger isn't always better. You go younger and you got a team that is really talented, that doesn't know how to win, doesn't know the steps that it takes to be consistent in this league or don't know how to win consistently. And a lot of times they can win football games. They can win a few with just pure talent, but eventually people will study your film and figure you out. And if you don't have another trick in your bag, it's going to be tough on you. And that's what you're seeing. I mean, it's really cool to see guys like Trayvon Diggs, who's in his second year, and he's having a freaking huge sophomore year. You're leading the league in interceptions. And, just talking to Dan Quinn, talking about Dan Quinn and that system and his consistency. He knows what he's seeing every day. He's getting great coaching. and he's thriving in the system. It's just a different way to look at it.
Yeah, I mean, you look at a couple different parallels. Obviously, we've talked a lot about the Rams of recent. It seems like they do not value picks, or they do value picks, but they value them for trading for veterans, right? And they value them for building out their roster into something that can compete for Super Bowls. I think far too often GMs and fan bases get way too caught up in the potential of next year's team, of a first round pick, whoever it may be. But for every Chase Young, there's a Jeffrey Okudah, and I guess, for Richard, from your vantage point, I mean, as a 11-year NFL player, how valued or overvalued are these first round picks coming to teams?
I think they're incredibly overvalued, and I think that's what teams are starting to, at least good teams are starting to realize that, hey, there are a few generational talents that come through, and a lot of times them right off the bat, and guys get snagged up. But for the most part, these teams are picking these quarterbacks kind of out of desperation. You know what I mean? They're hoping and praying. They're like, hey, Trevor Lawrence is supposed to be the generational talent, and we got him. Like, cool. Like, hopefully this works out. You can tell what the guys look like when Atlanta traded all those picks for Julio Jones. They knew what they were getting. They're getting a Hall of Fame player, and he has lived up to that hype. But nowadays you're seeing guys go in the third, fourth, fifth, sixth round that are contributing. You look at Elijah Mitchell out in San Francisco, and he's their lead back, and they got guys in the third round. They picked up the back from Ohio State in the third round, Trey Sermon, and he's not doing as well as the guy they took in I think he went in the fourth or fifth round.
Right.
And and the same is true at cornerback. They got the kid from Michigan in the third round, and he's not playing. He's not getting significant snaps. And they took somebody in the sixth round who's really thriving, who they feel comfortable with, who's gotten meaningful snaps in the football games. And that's why you can, if you're playing your team right, you don't bank it off draft picks. You can't. You let the best man play. You draft who you think you should draft, but then if you get in a situation where you feel like, hey, I got to play this guy, you kind of tanking your franchise, and that's unfortunately what happens to teams.
And we've talked about it a lot over the years, but I think it's important that you share it with the listeners too. When you were drafted by the Seattle Seahawks, you went into a situation with a player's coach, Coach Pete Carroll. You always told me, Rich, you loved him as a coach because he let the best man play, the person that earned the spot played. It didn't matter if you were drafted first round or an undrafted free agent. And your professional opinion, how does that impact you as a player?
I mean, it motivates you. I mean, if you feel like every man has an opportunity to play, then you go out there and you push yourself to the hardest you can every day. You go out there and chase it. You go out there and grind every day because you think you have a chance to be the guy. And if you are the guy, you will be. You'll start. You'll contribute to this team. And I think it raises the bar for everyone every day. When you don't feel like, hey, well, they kind of already penciled this guy into the spot, and it doesn't matter what I do, I'm not gonna start. I'm not gonna be able to surpass him. And that's hard, and that's what happens with a lot of these teams. You're like, hey, this guy, they're not giving him a fair shot. If they draft this guy high, that's the guy that's going to play, regardless of if he goes and plays terrible during training camp and the guy freaking is lights out. That kills the morale of the team because it makes it feel like, okay, so we're not going to field the best team possible. We're going to field the highest drafted team possible.
Right. Yeah, it seems like being awarded based on merit, based on your work ethic, based on how you look in practice is far more important than your draft position.
No question. And that's the difference between a lot of winning teams and teams that aren't. They're sitting there trying to, make the GMs look good and trying to make sure they don't look like idiots for drafting these kids when it's like, hey, just you guys have all these scouts, you got talented team, let the ball speak. Let the ball speak. If the ball isn't speaking, then you can make mistakes. Like maybe you did make a mistake. It's better to bite the bullet early than sit there for years and years and sit there and watch your team lose because you refuse to acknowledge that you made a mistake.
Which brings me to the Chicago Bears. This is a franchise that I think has a world of potential, had one of the best defenses in the last 5 years for sure, at least from a talent perspective. We saw Khalil Mack just get ruled out for the season today. But here's a team that fails in the draft with Mitch Trubisky. I mean, that's an epic failure, especially looking at, the folks that went after him and Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes, who were legitimate candidates to be drafted at that position. You trade up for a player like Mitch Trubisky to add insult to injury, and then you ride him out for years too long. And now they're on their second rookie quarterback in Justin Fields, who's also struggling. You see the potential in him, but to your point, Rich, you've got guys like Allen Robinson on this team that have earned their keep in this league that are unfortunately, in a world of hurt because of the situation that their team has put them in. How does that impact you and your mindset as a veteran, being in situations that there's no win?
Well, I think they're feeling a lot better about Justin Fields over the last few weeks. He's finally gotten to show his true potential. He's made some very, very cool plays with his legs and his arm. He's made some unbelievable throws. He's kept them in the ball game. He's moved the ball down the field. Obviously, he had growing pains early on, but some of that is coaching. Some of that is fit. Early on in the season, they're not moving him out the pocket. They're not running play action. They're not running boots. You're kind of making him something that he's not. And it goes back to system fit. It's like, if this is a quarterback, you have to make the system fit around him, and his skill set and what he does well. And I think that's what they're starting to do. Ever since the week, I think Matt Nagy got COVID, and he didn't coach that week. The offense has changed dramatically. And, who knows, what happened there. But ever since then, they've been, running play action, running some boots, getting him out the pocket, getting him in his comfort zone, doing the things that you saw him do well in college. And I think that as a veteran group, like you said, with Allen Robinson, he wants to win, but they're not going to give him the opportunity to get out of there. They're kind of holding him hostage. So I think he's doing the best that he can in this situation. He's playing hard every play. He's showing up playing hurt when he gets injured. He's playing through the injuries. So I think you got guys that are hungry, that want to win it, but maybe it's not the right coach. Who knows? At this point, I think they do have the talent. I think they might have finally found the right quarterback, but you have to make make it a scheme fit. And even with Trubisky had a pretty solid preseason with Buffalo, and it seemed like he fit that system a little better than he fit the system in Chicago. They made the reads easy on him, let him hit his back foot. The ball came out of his hand hot. It wasn't sitting there waiting for plays to develop, two-man routes where they can just double team guys and you don't have anywhere to go with the ball and you got to run it. So I think at the end of the day, it's a combination, hand in hand, with coaching and playing.
Richard, speaking of coaching, your old coach Kyle Shanahan was taking a lot of grief for the start of the 49ers. There was rumors about him potentially being on the hot seat. I know you have a lot of respect for him, and it seemed like they had a bounce-back game, the 49ers did. When we talked about who your midseason MVP candidate was, if you had to pick right now outside of anyone on your team, you said Aaron Rodgers. And a lot of folks got upset with you. I don't know if you read the comments, but a lot of people said Matt Stafford. And Matthew Stafford had a kind of regressed the last two games. And one of those games was your former team, the 49ers. What do you think of the 49ers right now? Do they have a shot at making the playoffs? Have they turned a corner in this season?
You got to remember, they're one of the most talented teams in the National Football League. They got the incredible pass rush. Obviously, losing Dee Ford for a little while is going to hurt, but Bosa is the same guy he's been. If you got a Bosa, you got a chance. He's been a menace, 8 sacks, numerous pressures, and they're not calling these holding calls. They're freaking bear hugging him and putting him in chokeholds, and, nobody's calling him. It's weird how they referee this league at sometimes. But at the end of the day, they're one of the most talented teams in football. They got one of the best Mike linebackers. Obviously, George Kittle, one of the best tight ends in the league. And they got one of the best offensive minds. Jimmy is playing unbelievable football, and he has over the last 4 or 5 games. They haven't won them all, but he has been playing. He's been doing his part and playing his part. The secondary has come together. Jimmy Ward is getting healthy, and you see, he shows up in prime time, 2 huge plays. The interception, the pick 6, he's one of the best safeties in the National Football League, and it was cool that in a primetime game, the world got to see his talent shine, because that's who he is, and he plays everywhere. He's in the middle of the field catching interceptions, then he's in the slot guarding Cooper Kupp one-on-one, and Cooper Kupp had probably one of his worst games of the season, and lo and behold, Jimmy Ward is guarding him. I'm sure that's not coincidental. And obviously, Kyle is a wizard with the run game, and I thought he was just showing off. He was just showing off because he knows what he can do. He knows how talented this team is, and he was able to freaking showcase that. He ran outside zone, inside zone. He ran it with the running back. He ran it with Debo. He got to showcase Debo Samuels and what he can do, and it was really cool to see. Because that's who they can be. They got the best left tackle in football. Trent Williams puts on a clinic week in and week out. I'm pretty sure he's like the highest graded player in PFF history right now. And deservedly so. And Laken Tomlinson is doing unbelievably. And so when you got everything clicking, regardless of record, if they get in the tournament, they're going to have a chance to do damage.
Yeah, no question about it. And it's crazy to see because going into that game, it seemed without a doubt the Rams are going to win this game. It's just a matter of time. And then 49ers jumped on them and just did not give up. And I think it's a testament to coaching, testament to a great fan base. And obviously, Richard, those are a lot of guys that are your buddies on that team. So it's good to see them back up and at it.
Yeah, E-Man got to stop dropping picks. That's a E-Man. Stop dropping picks, catch the ball. But I mean, that was an any given Sunday kind of Sunday. There was a lot of huge upsets, and teams that weren't supposed to beat teams that they beat. And people starting to understand that football is different than a lot of other sports. There are pros. Every team has guys, and got fans sometimes get caught up like, how do we lose to this guy? How do we lose it? Because they have guys. These are pros. These are elite players. And you're like, I've never heard of this guy. It doesn't matter if you heard of him or not. You don't have to hear every story or know every guy for those guys to be able to execute. The first time you hear about them, it may be their breakout game that they're having against your team. And that's why this league is always, fun to watch. And I think that's why fans kind of gravitate towards football is because you never know what could happen. Records don't matter. You can have a 1-5 ball club beat a 6-1 ball club at any given time. And every game, you don't let the records fool you because both teams are going to come to play, and one team may execute better, one team may sleepwalk through the game, and it's going to cost them.
You mentioned upsets and just kind of that any given Sunday. What did happen on Sunday? The Washington football team knocked off your Buccaneers. Obviously, that came as a shock to me and to a lot of fans. What in your mindset happened in that game?
It was just a lack of execution. At the end of the day, you got to execute. You got to execute the ball, throughout the game. It was a time and possession issue. It wasn't complimentary football. I mean, everything has been discussed. We're pretty banged up. Anytime you lose the time and possession battle, 39 to 20, it's gonna be tough for you to win that game. And that's what happened. And I think that's good for teams. Early on, you got to knock out the kinks. You got to be humbled, and it gives your team another hunger. You know what I mean? It gives them something to correct and go out there and get things right and right the ship. And I think that's what's going to happen this week.
And then we saw Carolina get back. We saw Cam Newton have an impact in that game early. Where do they go from here? Does Cam Newton provide a spark to Carolina to get them and keep them in this playoff hunt?
Yeah, I mean, it's cool, man. Stories like that are unbelievable because the way things kind of happen in Carolina, he's one of the best players to ever put that uniform on for that franchise. It meant so much. So to see him go out the way he did, so unceremoniously, it's bad for the league. It's bad for a guy to put so much into a city and just be let go like that. So for him to be able to come back, I think it's a really good feel-good story, and he can still play. The few plays that he was out there, he made a tremendous impact, and I think that, the more plays he's going to play, I think he has a new mindset. He's been working hard. You can see it. He's confident. His body, his body's healthy, and he's ready to he got a chip on his shoulder and ready to prove people wrong.
Richard, I want to switch gears a little bit here. We talked about the midseason MVP conversation a couple of weeks ago. I want to take a dive into some of your takes on the rookies in this league. We talked about Mac Jones, but midway through this season, who do you think is the odds-on favorite for Rookie of the Year, in your opinion?
That's a tough one because obviously Mac Jones is getting a lot of love right now, but early on in the season, people were talking about Jamar Chase, and he's still having a fantastic season. The Cincinnati Bengals have cooled off a little bit, but I think he's still, I think it's a two-man race between those two. For Offensive Rookie of the Year, I think If one of those guys doesn't get it, usually in those situations it goes to the quarterback. They always just have the ball in their hands a little bit more and, control their own destiny a little bit more than wide receivers. But if Chase keeps on this historic pace, then he definitely has a chance.
Switching gears again to the defensive side of the ball. Who's got the defensive player of the year?
Rookie or player?
Player.
That's going to be tough. I think it's going to come down to the wire. You got Aaron Donald's always going to be in the conversation. The impact that he has on the game week in, week out, he's got to be in the discussion. Trayvon Diggs, if he ends the season with 11 and 12 picks, and, I know he gives up some passes and gives up some yards, but he's going to be in the conversation, just to have that kind of impact on the game in terms of getting the ball and giving it back to your offense is the reason that Dallas is one of the top teams in the National Football League right now, and you can't overlook that. I think those two are kind of the odds favorites right now. Obviously, later on in the season, people come on hot, with these D linemen getting sacks, and with Von Miller coming in, I'm sure Aaron Donald is going to get a few more.
Surprisingly or not surprising, Myles Garrett's actually the top dog in terms of Vegas odds at 3-1 odds to win the Defensive Player of the Year. And then you got a guy like Trayvon Diggs, who you're talking about, who's having a absolutely incredible historic season for that franchise, and is second in line at plus 400. So we'll see how that shakes out. Now I want to dive in a little bit to this NCAA football conversation piece. We got a huge game this weekend. Ohio State plays Michigan State.
Come on now, your boys.
Michigan State's a 19.5 point dog.
Sheesh.
Yeah. But Rich, who do you think eventually gets into the college football playoff? Who's your top four right now? If the season were to end after this week, who do you think is going to get in it?
I just don't like college football, honestly. I mean, I like to watch my team, but I really don't like it because I don't like the way they do that system. I feel like when you have an opportunity, when you don't give every conference and every team a fair opportunity to play in the tournament, you keep every year Bama can lose 1-2 games, and it's like, well, Bama's still going to be in it, and they're probably going to find a way to win the tournament. And it just becomes hard to watch because it's like, okay, no matter what, Cincinnati can be undefeated, and there's a chance they don't get in the tournament, and that's just unfair. What else could they have done? What else could they do? So it's hard for me to watch that. But I think in terms of the Michigan State, Ohio State, 19-point dogs. Michigan State has had an incredible run game. The defense has been playing well. Ohio State has struggled against some teams that they probably shouldn't have struggled against. So I mean, I have a hard time thinking they lose the game at all.
I like to hear that.
19.5. That's crazy.
You said something interesting to me, Rich. If obviously the college football playoff committee is having discussions about expanding the playoffs. If you were sitting on that committee, what would your recommendations be to make the college football playoffs more appealing and more fair?
You can't not be a champion in your conference. You can't get in the tournament if you're not the champion in your conference. How are you going to be a national champion and not be a conference champion? Like that shouldn't be, that should never happen. And it's happened multiple times because they let Bama in no matter what. And I think that has to start to become precedent. Like, hey, if you're not a conference champion, you didn't earn the spot. You didn't win. Every conference has a conference championship now. If you don't go win that conference championship, you don't get to play. And there's been times they didn't even play in the conference championship and they got to play in the playoffs. And that's where it's like, hey, you're not even getting the same difficulty. You're not going through the same trials that these other teams are going through. You're getting to skip a game and still get to go to the tournament. And that's where it's like, come on now, like, when is it going to be fair? And that's why you're seeing just about the same teams in it every year, minus one or two teams. I mean, it's pretty much Clemson, Ohio State, Alabama, and then whatever third team rotates in there. It's been Oregon. I think Washington has been in there once. Notre Dame has been in there. Yep. But it's just like, I mean, to make it, if you expand it, then I think you could probably sneak one team in there without a conference championship. But at that point, then you get non-Power 5 teams in there, and I think it becomes a lot more fun because those teams deserve an opportunity to, there's been some really crazy upsets in college football with non-Power 5
Boise
teams.
State knocking off Oklahoma. I mean, that UCF team from a few years ago could have really done something, in a playoff setting. And and to your point, Rich, it doesn't necessarily have to be UCF from 5 years ago, going and winning the whole damn thing. It can merely be them, playing competitively against a Bama team and losing by 10, just showcasing to the world that, hey, these teams really are, top of the line programs, and they can compete against anybody on any Saturday. The fact that they're not even being in that conversation to me is a complete and utter joke. I mean, Cincinnati is one thing. Obviously, they play in a weaker conference. The strength of schedule is question mark, but they went to Notre Dame and knocked off Notre Dame. They're playing the opponents in front of them. So for the system to be so broken that it doesn't even allow a team that is likely to go undefeated into the college football playoff setting it's unbelievable to me, and it needs to be changed immediately.
And while at the same time, you're saying there's a potential 2-loss team that will be over them.
Right.
And that's just like, that's mind blowing. Like, you're going to let 2-loss teams and say, oh, well, they're probably one of the 4 best teams. Okay, well, they didn't prove it. Like, you got to prove it. You got to win the games. Like, you don't get to just say, hey, well, we know talent-wise they're one of the 4 best teams. Okay, I hear you. I know what you're saying. They're going to have NFL players. They're going to have guys drafted very high. But if they don't win the games, you have to give other people the opportunity to play because they've earned it. They've earned it by beating the teams in front of them, and your justification for putting these other teams in there isn't valid. That doesn't make sense. And I think it goes back to how they overrank the SEC. You'll see 3-4 SEC teams in the top 10 every preseason, so that when they lose games, their strength of schedule is still through the roof because initially you had them ranked so high. So when they get knocked out of the rankings, it's like, well, they lost to a ranked team, oh man, they beat this team. And all it does is keep that conference strong because, hey, at the end of the day, they're beating ranked opponents. Right. And it's like, come on, did they deserve to be ranked that high? If they didn't have those rankings, would it still go the same way?
Yeah, beating a preseason ranked Clemson team, a top 5 team that is now outside of top 25. What relevance is that? And to the SEC's point, I mean, Rich, we see it year after year after year. The conference has obviously got a ton of high-end talent, but it seems like there's only 2 teams every year that are really top tier of that. And it's Bama and either Georgia or Florida or some other random team thrown into the mix. You got to start giving more opportunity to these teams out west in the Pac-12. You got to start giving more opportunity to teams like Cincinnati. And obviously you got to start giving more opportunity to even the Big Ten. I mean, the SEC is just, to me, it's just so overblown. I mean, you might as well just stamp in 2 teams at the beginning of the year. It's just clearly
because
unfair.
It's always just Bama. If you take Bama out of the equation, it's not that unfair because you'll get an occasional, okay, LSU's good this year, Auburn's good this year, Florida's really good this year, but it would not be the same without Bama in that conference. You throw Bama in, then it's just like, hey, they're going to be in the tournament. It's like, who are the other 3 teams? And it's pretty much doesn't matter what Bama does unless they lose 3 or 4 games. They'll probably be in the national championship conversation. And that's where it has to be expanded because you have to give other teams a chance. If Bama has almost lost some games and they've lost, and it's like, hey, maybe they run into a team who has a better scheme and who out schemes them and outplays them in the game. And it's like, we didn't expect them to lose to them. Well, you wouldn't expect them to lose to them because you never gave them a chance to lose to these teams. That you never give them a chance to go against these teams. Now, they beat the doors off a lot of teams, most teams, but who knows?
We'll never know until this thing is expanded. 6 teams, 8 teams, it needs to change, and hopefully it will soon. Richard, last couple topics before we wrap here. You've had a lot of experience in this league. I'm sure you've had a ton of different stories to share as well, but who are some of the best teammates, not necessarily best players, but best teammates that you've had that bring out the best in you? I'm always curious to hear this.
Well, that's tough because I would say our whole defense, and Doug and Curse, and you know what I mean? So it's hard when you're in Seattle because there's so many guys that could fit in that because we just had such a great team, a strong team, great chemistry, guys that really played for one another and cared for one another. So that's hard to say because I would say pretty much the whole, to 2012, 12 through probably 16, 17 defense. And you know, those guys, it was unbelievable. You know, then you had Marshawn, Curse, Doug. You know, you had Okun, you had guys on the offensive line, Unger, who you love to death, Lil Noe. You know, you had guys that you really, Mike Robb. You know, the list goes on and on and on. You got Zach Miller, I was really fond of. I mean, I'm probably missing a few people, but it's just great guys on the team. So I would say those are some of the greatest teams and greatest teammates in San Francisco. I would say the same thing. You know, we had a fun group. Fred's a fantastic teammate. Armstead, obviously DeForest Buckner was a freaking super leader and a super great teammate. Bosa, E-Man, I mean, Verrett, I mean, you know, Jimmy, Tart, like I said, you freaking KK, like the list goes on and on and on. Dante Johnson, you know, you got Debo, and you can list so many guys. So it's hard to just be like, hey, man, this guy's my favorite teammate, because it's countless guys. You know, you got to play with these guys, and there's so much love and respect and sacrifice that goes into it that I can't put it on one or two guys. And I got great teammates right now with the Buccaneers, and I appreciate all of them. What
about the hardest worker?
The same is true. The same is true with the hardest worker, because guys, for me to say one guy would be putting other guys' work.
I'm gonna put one name out there for you, because I know you have a ton of respect for him. Deshaun Shedd.
Oh, Deshaun is a grinder. He's a grinder. And he's still grinding right now in coaching. He's a guy that will work from sun up to sundown. And that, you know, it shows. You know, it shows when he gets out there. He prepares like no other. He gets his body right, his mind right. It's cool to see, and he's done that since he was a rookie. But there's a ton of guys like that. That's how you stay in this league. That's how you're able to play for so long. And that's what Pete and those guys respected, and that's why he's getting an opportunity to coach, because he has that work ethic. Welcome to the Richard Sherman podcast, brought to you by Super Draft Fantasy. If you're a real football fan, you know that daily fantasy is broken. Super Draft has fixed it with their new game, Super15. Listeners get their first $5 game for free, no deposit required, with the code PFF at registration. You know the game. Pick your best 5 players off the grid with $15 in salary and let it ride. It takes less than a minute. Watch me pick a new lineup every week and see if you can beat my score. Download the Super Draft app and see if you can beat me to win cash prizes. Just use the code PFF at registration for your first $5 contest free. No credit card required to claim the offer. Offer only eligible for new accounts. All right, y'all know what time it is. It's time for the Super Draft Super 15 contest. Obviously, Mitch has paid people off and obviously sabotaged my, somehow he's 4-1, but, don't call it a comeback. I'm going to be back. This week, I'm going with the primetime kid, playmaker, Lamar Jackson. I need you to get all kind of points. You can run, you can throw, get it however you want. Your completion percentage is going up. You're breaking records. Just keep it going for me. Next up, we're going with 2 wideouts. Jamar Chase, averaging 19 yards to catch. I need a piece of the action. Jamar. I've been speaking you up. You've been doing a fantastic job. Just keep doing what you're doing. Then I'm going with my boy Stephon Diggs. Come on. I know you guys are hyped, you're ready to go. Your chemistry is exactly where it needs to be. Then I'm going with my $2 pick. It's going to be my tight end, the people's tight end, George Kittle. I need you to keep going to work. I need you to just, your energy's right. Jimmy G's feeling good. You guys are in rhythm. They're going to be double teaming Debo now. He's been having great games. It's time for you to eat, and I'm ready for it. Next, the next pick, I'm going to go Darren Waller of the Las Vegas Raiders. He hasn't been doing what I need him to do, but I need it to happen for me this week. Big plays. Come on, Derek Carr. You know it's one of your favorite targets. Get him the ball. That's what I need. That's what I need right now. I need you to get him the ball.
Richard, you scored 43 points last week. I scored 70, and I am up 4-1 as we progress throughout the season. And it's about to be 5-1. I am going to go with Patty Mahomes as my $5 choice. I think the Chiefs are back. They look a heck of a lot better after playing the Raiders. And I think Patrick Mahomes is set for fantasy dominance moving forward throughout the season. Then I'm sticking with my guns here. I went with him last week. He had a great week. Jonathan Taylor. It seems like the Colts have found that secret sauce on offense. They've been giving the ball a lot to Jonathan Taylor and the other running backs. I think Jonathan Taylor gets in the end zone again this week and gives me a really good opportunity to go 5-1 against Richard again here. Then I'm going to go with Terry McLaurin. I think the Redskins, or Washington football team, has obviously had a great week last week. I think Terry McLaurin is one of the most underrated players in this league, and I think he's going to show out this week for me. And then I'm going to go with my boy for the Detroit Lions, the 0-8-1 Detroit Lions, soon to be 0-9-1. But TJ Hawkinson will get in the end zone. He had a very bad week last week. He's going to bounce back this week. I'm going to go with him again because he can't possibly have 2 bad weeks in a row. And then to round it out, I'm going to go with the rookie from Philly, Devontae Smith, $1 pick. I think he's a steal for $1. He had a great week last week. I think he's going to do the same thing again this week. And I'm looking forward to being 5-1 at this time next week. We'll see what happens, though.
Don't believe Mitch and don't believe the hype. I know the record isn't with me right now, but it's going to turn around. It's going to turn around.
It's not.
So make sure you yourself get in the Super 15, and if you haven't started, if you haven't played yet, come on now. Your first $5 is free. Your first $5 game is free using the promo code PFF. No credit card required, none of those strings attached that you're used to. Come on, get in the game.
Richard, last little updates here before we sign off. How is the calf doing? Can you let your listeners know what's going on?
Well, I mean, obviously I'm on IR now, so you got the 3-week deal. So it's healing up. We'll be back for the stretch run, but it's just unfortunate circumstances. You gotta roll with the punches. So excited to be back when I get back, but we'll get everything together as it should be.
The time will come for you to make your presence felt, no question about it. Well, Richard, this is yet another production here, the Mitchie Richie production. I'll let you sign it off.
Well, thank you guys for listening. Please subscribe if you're new. We're gonna have more guests this week. We were unable to secure a guest. Guys are busy in the season, but don't worry. Next week we'll get somebody, and we'll keep you tuned on Twitter. If you're not following the PFF Twitter or R_Sherman_25, we'll keep you updated. So appreciate you listening. Another Mitchie Richie connection. Back at it again next week.